Picture this. You've been eating rice and beans for dinner 3 nights a week. You've been saying no to every happy hour, every weekend trip, every treat yourself moment. Every one your coworkers keep posting about on Instagram. You've been grinding for 11 months straight, watching your bank account crawl upward like it is moving through wet concrete. $4,200, $5,800, $7,300, $8,900. And then, one Friday afternoon, you check your balance and there it is, $10,000. 5 figures. You actually did it. You screenshot your banking app. You might even tear up a little bit. And honestly, you should. That number represents hundreds of small sacrifices that nobody saw and nobody clapped for. You feel like you finally crossed some invisible finish line. The one that separates people who have their act together from people who don't. And then something happens, something quiet, something you don't even notice at first. You go out to dinner that weekend, and you don't check the prices on the menu. You order an appetizer because why not you, Bev, got $10,000. The next week, your laptop is running a little slow, so you buy a new one for $1,100 because you can afford it now. Then your car needs new brakes, $800. Then your friend's birthday trip comes up and you say yes, because you've been saying no to everything for almost a year, and you're exhausted from being the person who always says no. That trip costs you $1,400 when you factor in flights, the Airbnb split, and all the meals you didn't plan for. None of these purchases feel irresponsible in the moment. Each one feels completely justified. You're not buying a Rolex. You're not leasing a BMW. You're just living a slightly less restricted version of your life because you finally have a cushion. But here is what is happening underneath the surface. $10,000 becomes $8,900, then $7,600, then $6,100. You notice, of course you notice, but you tell yourself you'll tighten up next month. You'll rebuild it. You did it once. You can do it again. Except you don't. Because now your spending has quietly recalibrated to match someone who has $10,000 in the bank, even though you no longer do. And then the real gut punch lands. Your transmission goes out, $3,200. And just like that, you are staring at a balance of $2,900, wondering how 11 months of discipline evaporated in less than 4. That is not bad luck. That is not even poor decision making. Really, that is what I call the evaporation trap, and it destroys more financial futures than credit card debt or student loans. The evaporation trap is what happens when you reach a savings milestone and your money has no assignment, no structure, no job to do except sit in your checking account looking available. Your brain sees available money and does what brains do. It finds perfectly reasonable ways to spend it. And look, I get it. You worked incredibly hard for that money. The idea that reaching $10,000 could actually be a dangerous moment sounds almost insulting, but the data backs this up. According to Bankrate, 56% of Americans say they could cover a $1,000 emergency with savings. Not because they never saved money. Many of them have hit $5,000, $10,000, even $15,000 at some point. They just couldn't keep it. The money evaporated through lifestyle creep, unplanned expenses, and the complete absence of a system to protect it. $10,000. That number is simultaneously the hardest money you've ever saved and the easiest money you'll ever lose. It is enough to feel significant, but not enough to feel untouchable. It sits in this brutal sweet spot where you're proud enough to relax, but not wealthy enough to absorb the consequences of relaxing. Here is something that might genuinely change how you think about this. What you do in the 48 hours after hitting $10,000 in savings will likely determine whether you build real wealth or spend the next decade running on a financial hamster wheel, saving and spending the same money over and over, never actually getting ahead. And the financial system around you, the apps, the ads, the one-click purchases, every single piece of it is engineered to make sure you pick the wrong option at this exact moment. Nobody teaches you what to do when you finally have money. They teach you how to save it. Sure, budget this, cut that, side hustle your way to 5 figures. But nobody tells you what happens after you get there, which is exactly why most people lose it. Now let's talk about the lies, the garbage advice that gets recycled so often it starts to sound like truth. Because there is an entire industry built around telling you what to do with your first $10,000. And most of it is designed to keep you anxious, confused, and making moves that benefit someone else's commission check. I call it the 10K Mirage. This collective delusion that hitting 5 figures means you've made it financially, that the rules change. Let's start with the biggest misconception. You need to make your money work for you immediately. You've heard this 1,000 times. Every financial influencer, every bank advertisement, every guy at the office who bought Tesla stock once and now thinks he is Warren Buffett. The moment you save $10,000, suddenly everyone is an expert telling you that cash is losing value and you need to deploy it right now. Here is what they don't tell you. Rushing to invest $10,000 without a plan is how people turn $10,000 into $6,200 in 3 months and then swear off investing forever. The urgency isn't real. It is manufactured. Inflation eating 3% of your savings over a year while you build a proper strategy costs you $300. Panic investing into the wrong thing because some podcast told you cash is trash can cost you thousands. The $300 is the price of a good decision. The thousands is the price of a rushed one. Now you might be thinking, but what about compound interest? Every day I wait is money I'm losing. And look, I get it. Compound interest is real. But you know what compounds even faster than interest? Bad financial decisions made under pressure. The person who takes 2 months to research, opens the right accounts, and invests with a clear strategy will absolutely demolish the person who threw money at Robinhood the same week they hit $10,000 because they saw a TikTok about it. Here is misconception number 2, and this one is sneaky. Your emergency fund should be 6 months of expenses before you invest a single dollar. This is the advice that sounds so responsible, so mature, so financially literate that nobody questions it. But let's actually do the math. If your monthly expenses are $3,500, 6 months is $21,000. So according to this rule, you shouldn't invest anything until you've saved more than double what you just accomplished. For someone making $50,000 a year, saving $21,000 before investing could take another 18 to 24 months. That is 2 years of potential market growth you're sitting out because some generic rule told you to. That is like refusing to plant a garden until you've built a 10-foot fence around it. Meanwhile, your neighbor planted seeds 6 months ago and already has tomatoes. The third lie is the most destructive one. You should use your $10,000 to pay off all your debt first. Now before you come at me, yes, high interest debt is a wealth killer, credit card debt at 24%, A4 is a financial emergency. But this blanket advice to dump every dollar into debt before building any savings is how people end up in an endless doom loop. They pay off $10,000 in debt. They have zero savings. The next emergency goes right back on the credit card. They spend another year paying that off. Rinse, repeat, forever. The system loves this cycle because you're paying interest in both directions. Interest on the debt and the opportunity cost of never having invested anything. A Federal Reserve study found that nearly 40% of people who pay off credit card debt end up back in the same amount within 18 months. Not because they're irresponsible, because they sacrifice their entire cushion to make a number on a statement go to zero. And the first unexpected expense put them right back where they started. And honestly, that is the through line connecting all of these misconceptions. They all sound smart in isolation. They all look great as Instagram graphics with minimalist fonts. But they all share one fatal flaw. They treat your $10,000 as a single purpose tool, when it is actually the seed of an entire system. Every piece of conventional advice wants you to pick one thing: pay off debt, or build an emergency fund, or invest, or save for a house. As if your financial life is a multiple choice test with only one right answer. It is not. And treating it that way is exactly how the 10K Mirage works. You feel like you're making progress by picking door number 1, while doors 2, 3, and 4 slam shut behind you. Here is exactly how the money split works, step by step, with real numbers. The first move is what I call the friction shield. You take $4,000 and you open a high-yield savings account at a completely separate bank from your daily banking. Not the same bank, not linked to your checking account for easy transfers, a separate institution entirely. Right now, high-yield savings accounts are paying somewhere around 4 to 5% AP. That $4,000 earns you roughly $160 to $200 a year just for existing. Compare that to the 60 cents your regular bank's savings account would give you on that same $4,000. But the real purpose of the friction shield isn't the interest. It is the 1 to 3 business day transfer window. That delay is your best friend. Studies on consumer behavior show that adding even a 24-hour delay between the impulse to spend and the ability to access funds reduces unnecessary withdrawals by over 50%. You're not locking your money in a vault. You're putting a speed bump between your emotions and your bank balance. Now here is the second move. And this is where the actual wealth building happens. You take $6,000 and you open a Roth IRA. The 2024 contribution limit is $7,000 if you are under 50, so $6,000 fits comfortably within that. You put every dollar of it into a total stock market index fund, something like VTI or FXAIX. One fund, that is it. No stock picking, no crypto gambling, no options trading because your coworker says he made $800 last Tuesday. Now you might be thinking, only $6,000. That is barely going to do anything. Let me show you what boring consistency actually produces. If you invest that initial $6,000 and then add just $200 per month, that is $100 per Pascal Wycheck for most people, at an average annual return of 8%, which is below the S&P 500's historical average of roughly 10%. After 5 years, you have approximately $21,000. After 10 years, roughly $49,000. After 20 years, you are sitting on about $135,000. After 30 years, that number crosses $375,000. $375,000 from $6,000 and $200 a month. And because it is in a Roth IRA, you pay exactly $0 in taxes on those gains when you withdraw in retirement. If that same money had been in a regular taxable brokerage account, you'd owe somewhere between $55,000 and $74,000 in capital gains taxes. The Roth IRA just handed you a tax savings roughly equal to a year's salary for the median American worker. And all you did was pick the right account type on day one. I know what you are going to say. What about the $200 a month? I can barely save anything after bills. And look, I get it. But here is where automation isn't just helpful, it is non-negotiable. You set up an automatic transfer the day after each paycheck hits. $100 goes to your Roth IRA brokerage account. $50 goes to your Friction Shield emergency fund until it reaches 3 to 6 months of expenses. And you live on what is left. You don't budget the money first and invest what is left over because there is never anything left over. That is not a discipline problem. That is how human psychology works. Behavioral economists call it Parkinson's law of money. Your spending expands to consume whatever is available. So you flip the equation. You invest first and spend what remains. But perhaps the most critical piece nobody talks about is tax optimization. If your employer offers a 401k match, even a partial one, you need to capture every dollar of that match before funding your Roth IRA. A typical employer match is 50 cents on the dollar, up to 6% of your salary. On a $50,000 salary, that is $1,500 in free money per year. Skipping your employer match to fund a Roth IRA first is like finding a $100 bill on the ground and stepping over it to pick up quarters. The order matters: employer match first, then Roth IRA, then taxable brokerage if you still have money left. If you do the math on someone who hits $10,000 at age 25 and follows this exact system, employer match plus Roth IRA plus automatic contributions of $200 per month, they re-looking at somewhere between $600,000 and $900,000 by age 55 from a system that started with $10,000 and a couple $100 a month. That is not fantasy math. That is compound growth, doing exactly what it has been doing for over a century. The only variable is whether you actually set up the system or just keep your money in checking and hope for the best. Here is the part where I need to kill the version of you that walked into this video. The version that has been playing a game you were never taught the rules to, and somehow blaming yourself for losing. You are not bad with money. You were never taught what money actually is. You were taught to earn it, spend it, maybe save a little, and repeat that cycle until you are 65, and hopefully have enough to not eat cat food in retirement. That is not financial education. That is a hamster wheel with a 401k attached to it. And I need you to understand something that might sting. The person you were before you watched this video, the person who kept $10,000 in checking and felt rich, the person who used savings as a down payment and went back to zero, the person who saved for 14 months and blew it in 14 weeks. That person has to die today, not tomorrow, not after you think about it today, because here is what I call the spectator trap. It is when you consume financial advice, nod along, feel informed, and then do absolutely nothing. You become a spectator of your own financial life. You watch videos about investing, but never open a brokerage account. You read about Roth IRAs, but never contribute a dollar. You know exactly what you should do with $10,000, and you still leave it sitting in checking, like a pile of cash on a kitchen counter, waiting to be stolen by your own impulses. The spectator trap is the most dangerous place to be because it feels like progress. You feel smarter. You feel prepared. But feeling prepared and being prepared are two completely different financial realities. One costs you nothing. The other costs you everything. Now you might be thinking, I'll get to it eventually. I just need to do more research first. No, you don't. You need to do less research and more action. The person who opens a Roth IRA today and invests $5,000 in a total market index fund without fully understanding every detail will be wealthier in 20 years than the person who spends 3 years researching the perfect strategy. Every single time. The math doesn't care about your comfort level. $5,000 invested today at 7% average annual returns becomes roughly $19,300 in 20 years. $5,000 invested 3 years from now under the same conditions, about $15,700. That $3,600 difference is the price of waiting. That is the tax you pay for being a spectator. So here is what happens right now, not tonight, not this weekend, right now. First, you open a high-yield savings account. If you don't have one, takes about 8 minutes on your phone. You transfer $3,000 to $5,000 into it, and you label it mentally as untouchable. That is your emergency fund. That money is not for vacations, not for furniture, not for opportunities. It exists so that when life punches you in the face, and it will, you don't end up in debt. Second, you open a Roth IRA, Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, pick one, it doesn't matter which. What matters is that you do it. You fund it with whatever remains from your $10,000, and you invest it in a broad market index fund. Then you set up automatic contributions from every paycheck going forward, even $50, even $25. The amount matters less than the automation. Third, and this is the one nobody talks about, you delete the login for your investment account from your phone's saved passwords. Make it slightly annoying to check your balance. Because every time you look at your investments, you increase the chance you'll panic sell during a downturn or pull money out for something stupid. The best investors are the ones who forget they have the account, and that is not a joke. Fidelity literally found that their best performing accounts belonged to people who were dead or had forgotten the account existed. You are not a person who isn't good with money. You are a person who was handed a system designed to extract every dollar from your paycheck before you could build anything with it. And nobody gave you the counter strategy. Now you have it. The version of you that existed 10 minutes ago, the one who thought $10,000 in a checking account was a flex. That version is done. The version that replaces them understands that $10,000 is not a destination. It is a deployment. It is soldiers being sent to different positions on a battlefield, each one with a job to do. Your money should be working harder than you are. And starting today, it will be. But only if you actually move. If this changed how you think about your first $10,000, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.